No mai hara mai. Ko Shannon Dowsing tōku ingoa. Welcome to the Exchange Cafe. At the Exchange Cafe, we come together to share conversations and resources about climate solutions. We're fortunate to have Andrew Lawton, founder and managing director of MyImprint, and Anna Byers, the general manager of MyImprint, with us today. Please welcome, first of all, and
thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself a bit further? We'll start with you, Andrew. Founder of the company. Tell us about it.
Sure. So yeah, my name's Andrew. I'm born and bred in Tairāwhiti, and I came through boys' high school and then went off to university in Otago eventually, and did a degree in surveying. And that's kind of where the thought processes started for me. University was a time where you can bring in a lot of information and learn a lot. And one of the things that really interested me was climate change. One of our lecturers was talking about it in civil engineering, and about how climate change was becoming a known thing, and we were talking about Antarctica and how the ice melt was going to start, and there were a few people starting to talk about actions we needed to do, and reducing the ozone hole was quite a big thing back then, but also emissions. And from that point on, as I progressed in my career through civil engineering and working with council and engineering firms, I was always asking myself the question, well, we're burning a lot of diesel doing this, and we're pumping a lot of emissions into the air. Is it the right thing? And progressing forward another 20 years, 2020, obviously the answer was no. It was a clear no. And so through that involvement with civil engineering, I realised that, hey, we're actually in the position to do something about this. We're the ones often recommending what solutions and construction practices we should be doing. So how about we analyse that and measure the emissions and start recommending some changes. So that was the idea, and the reason we started MyImprint was, how can we make a difference, help people measure their emissions.
Excellent. And how did you get involved? Oh, I should say, what is your background and how did you get involved first?
Yeah, so my name's Anna. I'm from Napier. I've been living in the Hawke's Bay with my family for about 15, 16 years. Many years ago, I did a degree in Parks and Recreation, and that was my focus back then. I worked for Outward Bound for a while, and just through the course of life, I've had a variety of jobs in terms of practice management and sales and marketing. And about 5 years ago, I had I call it a midlife job crisis, thinking, what am I doing? I mean, the jobs that I was doing were fit for purpose, but not really what I wanted to do for the rest of, my working career. And I knew that I wanted to hark back to that sort of sustainability and kind of parks type, kind of working business of some kind. So retrained and looked into working at helping to measure carbon emissions. And about 3 years ago, I saw an ad in the paper for a startup called MyImprint that needed some resource. So that's how I became involved. So Andrew started it, and my understanding is that he was starting to, do some carbon emission assessments on some of the projects, but didn't necessarily have the expertise. So brought in a few of us on board to build the company up and set up systems and processes and regulations so that we could measure emissions for businesses and projects to the required standards. So whatever we're doing is all done in accordance to the right way of doing things.
Great. So assessments for civil projects and their carbon impact over long duration, is that, or lifetime of project?
Yeah, so it takes two forms. We can measure emissions of a business organisation on an annual basis, and that's quite a common way for an organisation to get a first assessment of how they sit. But then there's the life cycle assessment, where you look at a product like this table and look at all the inputs that have gone into it. So looking at the screws, the glue, how the screws were made, how the steel was made, going all the way back through the cycle and chain of construction to get to the table, and then also consider what's going to happen next. You know, are we going to reconstruct that? Are we going to burn it? Or is it going to go in landfill? And once you know all those processes and elements, calculating the emissions related to it.
Yeah, I guess our core business though is more around helping businesses to measure and reduce their impact on the environment. So we take a business, we look at all the different factors that might, burn fossil fuels, either directly by putting fuel in their car or indirectly by the flights that they take, and give people or give businesses a really good metric that they can use so that it can then make some changes within their business and then start reducing that emissions. But you can't really do that. You can run initiatives and you can make changes within your business, but if you've got some numbers behind it, you've got some metrics to look at, how well you're doing and what's actually going to work. And what we've found is that what a business thinks might be their biggest emission source, like they might think, I want to put in solar panels to reduce all our electricity, but actually their biggest emissions are the diesel they put in their cars. And if they want to have the biggest impact on the environment, then maybe it's, put all your drivers through a driver training course so that you can reduce their driving emissions, or start a program to look at converting to plug-in hybrids and eventually electric vehicles if they're available. So, once you have that data, you can make some really good changes within your business to make some really good positive effects on the environment.
Excellent. So I guess from that, two things that interest me: what type of businesses are you engaging with, particularly here in the Tairāwhiti, and what other red flags are there for businesses? Obviously vehicle usage and decarbonising the fleet is preferable, but actually just changing driving habits can help. Are there others that we should all be sort of thinking about?
Yeah, well, I guess in terms of the first part of your question around who are the businesses that we're working with, so there's a real variety of businesses, from big construction companies that use a lot of concrete, manufacturing companies that produce tissue paper, to food rescue, to printing companies, insurance. Andrew, what else are we working with?
Civil construction.
Civil construction, yeah.
Manufacturing. So there's a wide range of businesses, both locally and around New Zealand. And so then the next step becomes, well, what are the easy steps they can take to reduce their emissions? And the two big ones are electricity and diesel. Electricity is an easy one, and diesel's an obvious one, petrol and diesel. But then often it's scope 3, we call them scope 3 emissions, which is the almost third-party emissions, where, like the table, we buy a table from somebody else. Well, they've produced emissions to produce the table. So we can consider, do we buy a wooden table or do we buy a steel table? And the emission profiles are substantially different. And so it's looking deeper into the business, their purchasing habits, and also their future purchasing plans, where we can make big inroads into the emissions.
Yeah, that's saying, I think the insight of that would help massively, because I wouldn't know where to begin with that purchasing habit element.
Yeah, and it's like accounting. Like every year we get a set of accounts from our accountant, and it goes through detail, line by line. What have you purchased? What have you done with your money? How much have you made? And you've got a KPI. Was it a successful year or not? Well, how about we do the same for carbon emissions? What have you purchased? Where have you spent your emission budget? Have you done any offsetting? And then what's the bottom line? And most people, we're not at that point yet. Some organisations have got there, but there's a lot that haven't. So that's an easy first step to make, just to see what the problem is.
You can also relate it to how you run your own personal life, in terms of what are you buying everyone for Christmas? Are you thinking about your purchasing decisions? Are you buying a lot of things that, are they needed? Are there alternatives? So you can make it relevant in terms of what would I do in my personal life? What would I do? What's the best decision for this business as well? How long, if I buy this table, how long is it going to last for? Or can I buy something that has that longevity, that I don't have to replace every 2 years, even though the 2-year one fits in within my budget right now? Yeah.
Understood. So, in that case, what do you see as the biggest challenges to climate action in New Zealand then? Like, where are we going, and where are we going wrong?
Yeah, well, there's a few challenges there. There's a lot of challenges actually. One of the biggest ones is people's desire to change. If we turn this question around and ask maybe a manager of an organisation why they haven't measured their emissions, why they haven't reduced them, well, probably the answer will be similar to, I'm very busy, I've got 10 other things, priority I have to do now, and no one's making me do it. So I think the first step is to acknowledge that we need a decision at a leadership level in organisations where we're deciding, hey, this is the right thing to do, we should be doing it. That's always the first step. And then if we look inside an organisation and talk to all the employees and people working in it, you'll often find there's an undercurrent of support for environmental solutions. So I think that's the first port of call.
Yeah, and I guess business people that work within an organisation, they're worried that it's just going to be another job that they have to do, that gets kind of lumped on them. It's like, who wants to do this? Management says we have to do something, let's do something, how are we going to do it? And I guess that's where we come in at MyImprint a little bit, is that we try and support businesses to help make that process easy, or easier than, navigating the carbon emissions or sustainability journey, because it can be quite overwhelming, and there's a lot of terminology and jargon that gets used, and there's more questions than answers that come out of things. Like, how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? And so that's how we can kind of give some guidance of really getting those first steps of a decision being made so that they can actually do something about it. But yeah, if it comes from, CEO, board level, that provides the vision for the company, and that can then filter down. The other thing it can be, clients are starting to ask for, and we're making purchasing decisions around a business or a product or a service if they have a sustainability focus, and that can be another way that change happens, because clients and people are questioning and demanding it in a way.
I guess there's always the internal debate too, isn't there, where you've got some skeptics out there still. Some would say that there's potential that the new government are a little bit sceptical with some of their return to oil and gas, and I guess
they have committed to 2050 being carbon neutral, so they will probably, I'm assuming they'll get there. Maybe we need to investigate it.
Yes,
they just have a different path. Not saying I support what the oil and gas changes, but
I guess the removal of the 2030 target and things like that are concerning. But I'm more referring to the fact that you're going to face that internally in organisations too, because it seems like you're working traditionally with larger organisations who have consideration, like a broader footprint, or you?
Actually, our focus is primarily SMEs, so we are working with a few large organisations, but SMEs, form a large part of our client base, and there is a positive undercurrent of people wanting to change, and they actually realise they need to make the change, but the time and energy and understanding is quite a challenge for a lot of people, particularly if you're an owner-operator business. You maybe have 2 or 3 employees. There's not a lot of resource to add this extra thing in on top of it. Something we were talking about on the way here was the nature of your focus. So, we're in this current financial system where a success of a company is often driven by profits. What's the bottom line? And that's a monthly to annual cycle. But often we work with a few iwi organisations, and they have a lookout of 100, 200 years, and it's a completely different focus. And when we think about those sort of timescales, all of a sudden climate change and the emissions budget is high on the priority list. And so having that longer term viewpoint where we're not driven by profits on such a tight cycle and we can look into the future and see, well, where are our kids going to be living? You know, what's the result of what we're doing now going to be? Where we can make really proactive decisions.
Yeah, I think, and in that SME space, it's quite nice knowing that it's easier to change organisational culture too. It's a lot easier to, I guess, imprint the concept across the organisation, and hopefully the organisation grows with that embedded instead of trying to force it on a larger team.
Yeah,
Yep.
and there is direction coming down from government, and it has. There's been a lot of change, especially for any government organisation has to have measured their emissions by 2025 under the Carbon Neutral Government Program. A lot of the big investment insurers and banks all need to have their emissions measured. So there's direction filtering down, and overseas there's different types of strategies where businesses over 200 employees all have to have measured their emissions. So eventually that sort of thing will filter down here in New Zealand and become part of what we do.
And it's even becoming something where if you don't, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So it's the customer base is starting to demand carbon neutral products. You go into the supermarket, you know, there are products on the shelf that are carbon neutral, and the more that starts to happen, the more businesses are realising, well, if I don't make the change, actually, am I going to be in business in 5 years' time? So, and this is just as applicable to people who are exporting. So in the EU, they're developing carbon tax, and so that applies to importers as well. So if you're exporting to the EU, in time you'll be analysed in terms of your carbon footprint on your product.
And it covers a range of products. I bought some carbon neutral toilet paper the other day. So, you know, and I like that because it means that this product they've thought about its cradle to grave emissions. So where is it sourced from? What can we do to make changes to make it a better product and still make it affordable? So,
do they have labelling for that in the on the product packaging?
Yeah, it says carbon neutral.
Okay. They don't have like a little tag like they usually have. It's actually just up to the product developer, like the
company.
The company.
Yeah, so there are certification schemes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you know, us and a range of other companies around New Zealand provide the certification for businesses and for products as well.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, I know that I've consciously made that decision around like buying Allbirds instead of Nikes, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that's a large part of the success of their company internationally too, is that they're recognised as a company that's doing good.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. You're making purchasing decisions based on a company's sustainability performance and what they find is important and what their values are. So, classic example of making a decision not to buy something because of you don't know about their sustainability background.
Doesn't mean I'm perfect, of course. I've left my Christmas lights on today, and I know it now that I'm thinking about what I could be doing better.
You could just put some rechargeable batteries in there.
Yeah.
And you know, that's one of the challenges I think that we face is the decision not to do something. You know, and particularly in big organisations, we have these 10-year plans and we've committed to building this road and developing this thing here and this and that. Sometimes the best decision is to not do it. And that needs to be an option we can consider. You know, I won't put you on the spot with your Christmas lights, but there might be other options that you know, have a zero carbon footprint that are nice and easy to purchase and out there.
Or you could turn it on its back and say, the Christmas lights, your impact is very minimal. But if you start, reducing your food waste and home composting and actually doing something about that's probably going to have a bigger impact. Or for any travel that you do that's less than 2 kilometres, you jump on your bike. I mean, I live in sunny Gisborne.
Yes,
so
I would love to if I wasn't doing the school run.
Yeah.
I probably can next year. Got better location.
Yeah.
First year of school.
Yeah, or just incorporating one trip a week into, on a bike and making really small changes that way.
Yeah, so we're supporting the Wednesday Challenge.
Okay.
And
yes.
we're going to be we're taking that up locally. No one is perfect, right?
No one's perfect.
I feel.
I drove here.
What's that?
I drove here from Napier.
Well, there you go.
I didn't fly.
Yeah,
That's
we
better.
could have zoomed you in.
I could have. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
There
at
still
all.
has to be, and there still has to be a balance with, interacting with people and not, so.
Sorry. Who does that? Need to get a professional around here. Sorry, you're saying there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, so you have to mix the good with the less good. And so long as you're making changes and making conscious decisions, then that's when change happens. And we need a lot of people doing little things well, rather than one person doing great things great. If everyone's doing little things well and making small changes.
So then things like policy and decision making must frustrate you at times. For example, the one that gets me is the GST off all fruit and veg. Now, why not GST off local product? GST off, New Zealand lamb and beef and vegetables and it seems to incentivise the right thing then, versus incentivising GST off import fruit.
Yep.
Yeah, you make a good point.
And the clean car discount as well is another hot one for us. Unfortunately, those sort of things are a little bit out of our control. The new government's in, and they're going to, I guess, proceed along the lines that they see fit. But we still have the power to make quality decisions. And just in that last discussion, I was thinking about things aren't always obvious. So you think an EV car uses no petrol, it's carbon zero in terms of running it, but actually the building of it is has quite a heavy carbon element. And sometimes we've got to think about, well, maybe the option to keep a smaller car, an older car running for a bit longer before we purchase a new flash EV might actually be a better decision in terms of the life cycle carbon footprint. And we can apply that sort of thinking to all elements of life just to make sure we're making the right decision.
And I guess that's a hotly debated topic, and this is something that through your business you're probably much more in touch with than most. For example, the life cycle of the EV and the high cost of, the extractive nature of the battery technology, and first of all, and then the carbon cost of building the vehicle, and then the disposal at end of life. How do they weigh up at the moment versus a new, there are efficient petrol vehicles. There's
if you look at a brand new petrol vehicle versus a brand new EV, over the life cycle, the EV has a lower carbon footprint.
Significantly, or
in New Zealand, it's significant, and so it's worthwhile in New Zealand. If you did that in somewhere like the States, where they've got to produce their electricity with coal, then it's a very different picture. It's just a slight difference. But if you look at a decision to purchase a new EV or maintain an old vehicle that's got another 10 years of life in it, then that might look a lot different. And so we've got some spreadsheets where we're developing that you can look at the purchase options that you have, how long they're going to last for, the cost in terms of carbon and dollars, and then make an informed decision for each product.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. Are those tools publicly available, or are they something that's your
special tools?
hidden IP?
I guess we've done the analysis and working on the development of those, so that when a client comes to us and says, okay, you've measured our emissions and we want to make these changes, which is going to be the best option? We can say, look, here's some work we've done. You can plug in your data and get an end result, and you can then make an informed decision, not just on money.
And every client's got a different situation. They might be looking to replace a 5-litre truck or a 20-tonne excavator or whatever other machine that they're using specific to their business. And so we have to customise, the options for that customer.
I think that one of the things is that we're very lucky in New Zealand to have a very, most of our electricity is generated out of water, wind and sun. So for us to be able to charge all our devices and vehicles, it's a good option in New Zealand for us to do that Whereas overseas, where their power is not so decarbonised, it's just a different decision-making process.
Yeah, and that's why in New Zealand we should really be leading the world in this, because we've got the capacity and capability to actually be carbon neutral as a country. And so, if we can't do it in New Zealand, then imagine how hard it is in a country where they don't have hydro electricity. So we've got the best opportunity and perhaps a responsibility to be leaders in this area.
And the other thing that people quite often say is that, we're such a small country, we contribute to, say, 1% of total, no, it's not even 1%, it's less than that, global emissions. Why do if we make all these changes, what impact is that going to have? And I guess there's a whole lot of countries that are in that boat. So there's 20 countries that make up 20% of global emissions. Does that mean we all get a leave pass? Or does it mean that if we all make all these changes, that's 20% of global emissions that actually come down because all of those countries think the same way? So,
yeah, I understand that thought process for sure. It's it's one that I regularly have an argument with my father about.
Yeah. Well, now you've got some ammo to come back with them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me the issue, and obviously we've got to add geothermal to our list, and that's not as carbon friendly, but it's still better than coal, which is back on the cards as well, apparently. Yeah. So we've got, yes, we have amazing opportunity. There is still will to go that way, but I still feel that we're falling into the trap of carbon farming versus change. I still feel like there's this desire to offset, which doesn't actually achieve anything for anybody except for pushing the problem down the road. What have you done in through the company that you think are like successes? What are the successes you've had that you think other people can implement? Yeah,
well, we work with a couple of companies where one of them is producing a carbon neutral product. And so they're looking at their supply chain for paper products, and that goes offshore, looking back at the producers offshore, where they're bringing in the raw product from, all the way through to the consumer. And so they're making decisions on transport and production, looking at their facilities and their electricity use, and lowering the carbon elements of all of that, as well as doing the offsetting piece for the balance that they haven't been able to completely rule out. And so it's a really positive step. And that flows through to the consumer. They see the difference, they purchase a product, and it reinforces the change. And then it starts forcing the competitors to do the same. So we're still early in the game. And so that leadership piece of enabling these companies to be leaders and demonstrate that change is a success for them and drives more change is critical. And so that's one example where they're having a really positive change.
I've got another example. And so we've worked with another construction company, and a lot of their emissions come from making concrete. They make concrete structures, and they kind of thought that they didn't know if there was going to be many ways that they can reduce their emissions, but we've now measured their emissions for a second year, and now they have a plan in place. And that's one of the biggest things, is that once you've measured emissions, make a plan to make some reduction. So they're now looking at when they can convert their diesel boilers to a biomass boiler or an electric boiler, depending on what is going to be the best solution for them, so they can dry all their concrete structures. So, if they hadn't measured in the first place, they wouldn't have had a plan. So it's really, it brings you a lot of hope that businesses, no matter what the industry is, can look at what things, once they've measured, and they've got that information and data now, so now let's look at how we can make a plan and do something. So they've kind of got off the wheel of just not doing anything to actually getting stuff done. Yeah. And the other thing, I guess, at MyImprint, we really encourage our businesses to measure and reduce first. the first thing you should do before offsetting is reduce the emissions, and offsetting is a tool to offset any emissions that you can't reduce, those hard to reduce emissions. You still have to do business. You still have to fly places, drive places, you still have to do business. So for those emissions that you can't reduce after making changes, then you can offset. And offsetting is a tool. If we didn't have the offsetting, carbon farming and things, we may not have had all these forests that might have still converted to something else. So there still needs to be a tool where businesses can offset those hard to reduce emissions, but also it gives us the ability to grow farms. We also at MyImprint encourage, if you are offsetting, to offset with native rather than plantation forests. So that's kind of part of our ethos of what we encourage our businesses to do.
So it seems like your successes will come through advancing business intelligence and advancing the awareness, I guess, within businesses. So it's I like that it's a approach that is empowering your clients more than just looking for quick fixes.
Yeah. And another example is a couple of businesses we work with, and some of their biggest emissions have been from a refrigerant leak. So they've had an air conditioning unit or refrigeration that wasn't maintained properly, had refrigerant that leaks out of it, which has really big impact on a big global warming potential of that refrigerant that leaks out. And so now they're on a maintenance program and they don't have that. And that just something really simple has made a big change to their emissions profile.
Yep.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the organisations themselves making the change. We're just there to support them and and guide them in our experience. So we're the businesses we're working with, they've started the journey and they're starting to make progress, and it's amazing to see that. And as more and more businesses become aware of not just the need to do this, but the opportunities in doing it, we believe that it's a bit of a snowball effect that starts to change the entire industry.
And there's a lot of businesses doing really great things. It's a little bit hard for them at the moment to really talk. I think businesses are a little bit worried about greenwashing and talking too much about what they're doing, but I guess we encourage the clients that we work with to talk about it in an honest way. Say, instead of saying we're amazing, we've done all these amazing things, you can say things like we've started our sustainability journey, we've measured our emissions, and now we're looking at what we can do next to actually reduce our impact. So, and that, people that are reading that and clients that are buying their service or product believe in that more than, wow, look at us, we've done all this amazing stuff and now we're offset and we're zero. But telling that story about what they have actually doing and their journey is important.
So is that the only measure you're using at the moment because of its relevance in today, is carbon neutrality? Or are you looking are you having them to understand, like you've spoken about concrete a few times, so I think they're the two highest use resources on the planet, right? It's water and sand. Is that part of the knowledge that your clients are gaining? Like what are they extracting from the planet to achieve what they're achieving? What is it, or is it still measured just in carbon neutrality?
Yeah, the focus for us is for emissions. We keep it simple, and we provide an emissions measurement for the businesses and a reduction plan. But there's always the tertiary and side benefits that go along with it, and so for example, the offsetting, if you're doing some planting, there's the flora and fauna and returning the land to its original state. It has so many side benefits to that are not just emissions. Emissions is a simple measurement that we provide that enables a KPI and a profit-driven tool sort of thing. But yeah, there's always the wider benefits that there's other schemes internationally that some businesses sign up to, like B Corp, that measure a range of other environmental measures and social measures too, to determine the health of a business. Emissions are just one part of that.
Yeah. I think for me, so there was the investigation and the following report on the forestry practice in region post-cyclone, and part of that mentioned things like potential for biodiversity credits in the future, and obviously, you know, as you mentioned, the other effects that you may achieve from replanting, biodiversity being a great example. Yeah, I'm wondering where that factors into MyImprint in the future. I assume if it's established, then you'll be looking for those as measurement tools as well.
Yeah, if it becomes a wide practice and people recognise it, then it makes 100% sense to do that. In the meantime, you know, we talk through with our clients what the benefits are of each decision they make, and yeah, try and encourage native planting is quite a key one. You know, believe it just has so many wider benefits around the biodiversity protection, that is one of the other factors globally. You know, we're losing the biodiversity at an alarming rate, so anything we can do to slow that down is beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we do things like for every client or job that we do, we plant one native tree through trees that count. So that's not a offset, it's an extra thing we do. And so at the end of the year, we go on a big planting adventure and plant a whole lot of trees, and other people can do that. And that's all around your culture as well within your business. Get the whole team involved and it can be a team building exercise, but it also improves, you know, has other factors like that, biodiversity improvement.
Yep. So I understand you partnered with Trust Tairāwhiti in region to support a number of businesses. How'd that occur? How do people get involved? What's happening with the partnership? Yeah,
so I've been working along with Ryan for a while now to get that lined up, and we've got about 8 to 10 businesses in the partnership working together with them. And it's not just about measuring their emissions, it's about upskilling them so they understand the whole process from gathering the data, storing it, measuring, writing the report, and preparing their own reduction plan. So they're involved in the whole process. When this comes around next year, they'll know where to start and how to keep moving with it. So we're about halfway through this first round, and you know, we'll have some results towards the end of the year or early next year.
And we really value the partnerships that we have, you know, with Trust Tairāwhiti. They have the local knowledge and connections with businesses, and you know, we can tell people that we try and make it easy, but if you know, clients or businesses still are a little bit hesitant and they've got another support mechanism, then, you know, to get it across the line, to help them start, then that's a really valuable piece as well. So, you know, having those key relationships with organisations like Trust Tairāwhiti is it's great for the local region, and it's great for those businesses that get involved too, because they have that extra support.
Yeah, excellent. So what's next for MyImprint? Where do you want to be in 12 months, 24 months, 5 years?
Take over the world.
We've just finished finishing the development of our software, MyCarbon. It's you know, beta version that we're engaging with our existing client base first, which helps them collect their data and maintain it in one place and report on things easily. We've also brought on a data analyst who, for the larger organisations who want to report their data regularly, you know, we're working with them to do that through things like Microsoft BI, so people get a visual on what's going on. Yeah, so... Yeah,
and we've got, I mean, our team's expanding. We've got 3 in Gisborne, and I'm in Napier. We've got Dunedin, Auckland, and we've gone global, 1 in Italy. So, you know, as we've all got the ability to kind of flex and grow within the business. So if we get more work on or more clients that want to join us, we have the ability to then, you know, upskill new people and bring on new people. So that's kind of our plan, is to keep growing and help more businesses to succeed on their sustainability journey.
Well, I mean, yeah, hopefully I'll join you soon then, because
okay,
we
sign you up.
Yeah, pretty much. Look, I think we all feel the responsibility to get involved in this. I've been down this path with council a couple of years ago when I was on the council. I was a trustee at Trust Ravidi, so I know that they've been keen to measure their carbon impact for several years, and take that leadership position in community to really start understanding what our profile looks like. And for me, I know I do as well as I can in my home life, but this I exclude a little bit. This I let it have its own life, because I feel like we're here to serve the students more so than the planet, and I do need to start addressing that balance, I think.
And there's no reason why you can't start incorporating some of those thought processes into what you do, and then you can then influence that over all those students who then, when they start their own businesses, have sustainability already incorporated in what they do. So already there's a filter down process. Yeah.
Show some leadership.
Oh. There we go. Challenge has been laid down.
It has. Well, thank you both for coming in. It's been a wonderful chat, and I do look forward to seeing how you impact our region and those businesses you're working with. And absolutely, it's top of our mind. So I look forward to getting involved in the future. And really, just your knowledge and insights are really helpful for all those watching, and for those who might want to become clients of yours in the future. So yeah, thank you both very much.
Awesome, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thanks for having us. It's been great conversation.
Great, and follow us and contribute at exchangecafe.co.nz, because together we have the solutions. Mā te wā.